Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Nerds with Friends. My name is Cody Leach. As always, I'm joined by Christian Garcia.
Hello, my nerd.
So we're back. This week we're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars Acolyte. We both just finished the last episode, so it's fresh in our minds. And of course, we're going to talk about did this live up to the hype? Is it everything we've ever wanted in Star Wars, or did it fall short? So we'll talk a little bit about that. But of course, we have to start off, as we always do, with some nerdy confessions where we confess the things that make us nerds. Um, Before we get into that, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you thought of Star Wars Acolyte, and we'll hit you up in the comments and let you know our thoughts as well. But Christian, what's your nerdy confession this week?
So it's a nerdy confession is I actually enjoyed a movie that I think Cody hated.
I didn't hate it.
Which is Long Legs.
Long yes.
I did enjoy it. It was kind of cool seeing I'm just it was great for me because it was something outside of the normal horror movies that we get, which is
Yeah,
like a lot of like your typical jump scares and
sure.
there's just so many tropes that are overused, like, oh, there's a mirror and I'm gonna close it and then the thing's behind you, and it's like it's just always the same shite. And I like they did some stuff that was similar to what was in The Exorcist, and I
Yes.
thought it was cool.
I like,
I won't give
and
up too much because Cody didn't like it because there was a lot of demon stuff. But Cody went into he was sold on a different movie by a preview.
yes, exactly.
So
And I think that's something that has been more and more that has been happening more and more with especially A24. They are the like most guilty of this. Like
yes,
you'll see an A24 trailer, you're like, ooh, this looks fucking good. And then you get there, it's like I feel like I just spent like 2 hours on acid, just like
they
trying.
definitely. I don't know. Like I really love A24. I feel
I
like
do
they
too. Like, don't get me
more.
wrong. I think they make quality movies overall.
Yeah,
I just think that their marketing team is a little
it's.
predatory.
I feel like there's two teams, right? One
Yeah.
that'll give you what you're gonna get, and another one like, let's fuck with them a little bit.
Yeah,
But I definitely felt that with I think it was called Sheep. It was one that took.
sure.
Did you watch that?
I didn't watch it, but you told me about it, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad I didn't watch it because that was a bait and switch for sure.
Yeah, I know it definitely was because the trailer did a great job. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be a trippy psychological mind fuck.
Yeah,
And no, it was. I still enjoyed it, but it's
sure.
not what
Not
I
what you
signed
signed
up
up
for.
for. Yeah, there was one I watched called, I think it was called Men.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. It keeps popping up on Max, but I haven't
Yeah,
watched it.
I was just like, oh, well, this isn't what I wanted. But I get it. They're trying to get people into theaters, and it's obviously working because it's happened to us multiple times.
Yeah, the only
Um,
thing I'll say about Long Legs was they kept saying the reason why I wanted to watch it. They kept billing it. People are terrified. People are like running out. People are scared. And I was like, yeah, I wasn't scared. It was. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't
yeah, I don't.
scary.
Every time they say that, I'm just like, really? I mean, when they said that for like Human Centipede, I was like, okay, well, I get it. But yeah, it was just one of those things where I there was parts of it I really enjoyed. But I went into it thinking it was going to be like a new take on Silence of the Lambs kind of thing, where you have this, fresh FBI agent who's kind of out of her depth, but somehow gets pulled into this case that's bigger than her. And there's parts of that for sure. Um, but there is a supernatural aspect to it. Well, I mean, we won't spoil it too much. I think people should go see it if they're into kind of psychological horror type movies. But there's a supernatural element to it, which part of it is revealed in the first 5 minutes of the movie or something like that. But I just thought that they went too heavy on that, and it's like they're throwing things out there without any sort of explanation. You're just like, oh, okay, I just have to accept that this is possible without little hints of it throughout the movie. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It was fine. Like I enjoyed that we watched it, and overall I had a good time. But it was just like I wanted a little bit more out of it. But I still think it's a well made movie, well acted. Nicolas Cage plays a creepy guy for sure, and you know it's definitely a fun watch for sure. But it's just like
I
that you sent
enjoyed his.
that video at the end where you're like you sent that video with like the ending explained. That guy fucking loved that movie. He was like, "It's the best horror movie in the modern decade or whatever." I'm like,
I
"Okay,
would say it's. I mean, I think by comparison of what we've been served lately, sure,
sure,
but
it's better than average." I think but
but like to say like the best, like nah. If you
no,
guys want to see a really good movie, Session 9, that movie fucked me up.
yeah, Session 9 was a good one. I remember that one. One that's still like I still think about it. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I still think about it and I'm like, "Ooh, that was a scary movie." Was Event Horizon. I fucking love that movie.
You know, it keeps popping up on my Max. I think Max, one of the streaming services, and I haven't seen it in a while. But I remember I saw it as a kid. I remember really liking it. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I think people should go see it. Yeah, Long
yep.
Legs. I think it's worth watching for sure if you're into like kind of like a I call it like a psychological horror with supernatural elements to it. But
You know, you mentioned Event Horizon. I always get that movie, and I think it was a Sphere. Was it called Sphere?
oh yeah, The Sphere.
I always get those two
With
confused.
Sharon Stone and Dustin Hoffman, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Event Horizon's the ship that goes lost, and then they go onto the ship, and it's like the crew got teleported to hell or something.
Yeah, I got to rewatch it.
Yeah. Event Horizon gives me or a movie that gave me Event Horizon vibes is Sunshine, which was also a very good movie. I really like sci-fi horror. Like I loved all the Alien movies, not the Alien Predator movies, but the actual mainline Alien Covenant, 1, 2, and 3, all those ones. I loved all of them.
I'm excited about the new one.
Me too. Romulus, it looks good. And
We'll
I'm
see.
just
Also, I remember I forgot to say, I guess a mini nerdy confession. I watched the movie with Scarlett Johansson. I remember you told me years ago where she's like an alien.
oh, Under the Skin.
I actually really enjoyed that too.
Yeah, it was good. Again, not marketed exactly the way it should have been, but it was fine. It was a very creepy movie for sure.
Yeah.
But that one was kind of like a slow plotting, psychological, weird one. But
Plus,
yeah,
she's naked in it, so which is
yeah.
great.
You
So
know, I hate to crush your dreams, but that was a body double because
great
she was,
body double.
yeah, body double. Great work. No notes. My nerdy confession. I am very close to the end of Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson for my, I don't know, third or fourth reread now. Um, and last night I was reading it in bed, and the Sanderlanche was in full effect. The Sanderlanche, for those of you who don't know, is the parts of Brandon Sanderson books where it gets to be like the last, quarter of the book or whatever, where shit just starts popping off. And I gotta say, like, I've always been a big like Words of Radiance fan, which is book two. I don't know, man. Oathbringer is fucking great. It's so good.
It's a very anime, like scene. Like I can imagine. Like sometimes like when I'm listening to an audiobook, I try to like picture in my mind like how it would be cinematically. I was like, I feel like this can only be done as an anime. Like I don't think it would work any other way.
There's parts of it I think that would lend itself really well to an anime, but like there's the scene where like um you know uh, spoilers I guess to this 1,200-page book that's halfway through a series, but um Dalinar has like caused a perpendicularity. I'll keep it vague. And then all the knights radiant starts showing up. There's like one of each order, and it's like a scene from the Avengers when
Yeah,
they're all like standing there on the battlefield, and then they all get their missions and stuff. I was just like, I was reading last night. I'm like, this is great. This is so good. And
that's why I was asking. Like, wait, he can't bond what we were talking about. Like
Yeah.
he can do that. I feel like he can bond that.
Well, it's just, maybe he'll discover some power like that, but if he could do that, that whole book would be like, 100 pages because most of that book is him trying to convince people to join him.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, not by force, but you can ask them, and then if
Yeah.
they agree, then you bond it.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. So the reason why that is a thing is because odium is a god and gods they cannot lie. So if they make an oath, they can't break it. And
Right.
that's like his whole deal is he's trying to convince him to take this tournament or testing of champions. And that's what it has nothing to do with Dalinar's power at all. So like he
Mhm.
can't do it to any other person. It's specifically because Odium's being he's governed by his own rules, that all the shards of Adonalsium are governed by, where he can't lie and he can't, go against an oath kind of thing. So he's got to
Feel like
convince him to make this decision that ultimately will be his downfall.
I thought it'd be something like, "Hey, do you love me?" Yeah, I love you. Bonded. All right, that's it forever. Forever. Can't change.
Forever. um, yeah, but man, those books are great. And I'd say the biggest bummer about being a book nerd is that so few people like reading nowadays. And it's like, I get it. Like, it's a busier world than it's ever been, right? But it's like, I just want more people to talk to about books like this. And
Audiobooks, baby. I keep telling
yeah,
everyone, just like pop it in when you're driving.
oh, for
Put on
sure.
earbuds when you're doing chores. Like just
And it's like, it's so funny because like people are like, oh yeah, I watched, the whole season of Love Island or whatever. It's like, okay, like nothing happens in that show. You know what I mean? Like the the end result of it, you're like, oh, this girl went with this guy and gave him the rose or the scepter or whatever. It's like, first of all, none of it's real, and like it doesn't like lead into anything. There's no overarching story. It's just like it's ephemeral. It's there and then it's over, and then the next season happens, and who cares?
Cody,
With
it's just
this,
it's hot people being stupid.
it's how people being stupid. With this, it's like there's like multiple stories going on. There's a bigger thing at play behind the scenes with the Cosmere, and it's like, it's one book after another, and it's just telling this grand fantasy story, and it's incredible. So more people should read.
It
Is
is it is great, and like I think I was gonna mention it next time we had the book club, but like he writes mental disabilities very fucking well.
Yeah.
Very,
One thing
very well.
one thing he said is that, he wanted to make sure because a big part of this series, Stormlight Archive, is that each of these main characters has some sort of mental health issue, condition, what have you. And he wanted to make sure that when he did that, he did it right. So he did research, he talked to experts, he talked to people who have said, conditions and whatnot. And he wanted to make sure that he did it right because he got tired of seeing like the trope alcoholic in books where it's like, it's just an unlikable piece of shit kind of thing. And or like the depression guy who's just like a broody like emo guy, you know what I mean? He wanted to make sure that it was true representation of people who really struggle with that stuff, and I think he's done a really good job.
No,
And
yeah, it's in the audiobooks where he, and I'm sure it's just like in the introduction, but he says he has people who suffer from it, like read it and be like, hey, change this or like do this. And like you could tell he took the notes and like
yeah,
he definitely did.
and that's not something he has to do. Like, I think the audience at large wouldn't care if some of these characters were not well portrayed, but he takes that responsibility on himself, and I think that's pretty cool that he takes the extra effort because these books are a lot of effort, I'm sure, to write and produce and stuff. So putting more work into that is like, okay, well, good on you for doing that. But it's incredible. I think everyone should check the books out. You know, everyone says start with Mistborn, which you could totally do. It's more digestible for sure, but I just started in Stormlight Archive and I've never looked back.
Well, the thing is like he's got well, I mean, not the intro, but like when the story actually starts from Way of Kings, he's got such an amazing intro that like it got me
Hooked.
right away. It's like two great hooks right in the beginning chapters. And it's like, all right, well, I just from the two things, the events that happened in the beginning, it's like, all right, I know I'm gonna love this, and I know I have to fucking finish this like right away.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like the Dark Tower, like the opening line of the Dark Tower, you know,
Yeah.
it's like the man in black fled through the desert and the gunslinger followed. Like, fuck, what a great opening.
Yeah.
Like
Incredible.
I want to fucking know
More
why.
about everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like why.
It's so good. I know. That's got to be one of the best opening lines of all time, I think. But yeah, that's a different argument. Well, let's give our let's talk a little bit about Star Wars Acolyte. And as per usual, we'll give kind of a spoiler-free review, thoughts, opinions on it, briefly. So if you're on the fence about starting it, or you only gave it an episode and fell off or whatever, you can kind of know if you should pick it back up, if it's worth watching. And then after our short little break, we'll come back and we'll talk full on spoilers analysis, getting into the nitty gritty. But spoiler free, Christian, what did you think of Star Wars Acolyte on Disney Plus?
I love the fight scenes.
Yep.
Choreography was great. It was awesome to see a lot of not non lightsaber combat.
Yep.
Um,
From Jedi,
from Jedi, yeah. And maybe non Jedi, but
yeah, sure.
so it was great because obviously they fucking learned to fight without it. I mean, you have to because or if like I'm sure it wouldn't be unheard of that a lightsaber breaks, gone, drops, and then what? You're useless. Like
Yeah.
you still have to be a formidable force.
Of
That
course.
was great. There was there was some stuff that I really like, but I want to give you an idea that I had. Um, and then we'll go into because the rest is going to be spoilers. So
Spoilers, sure. Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably the if I'm thinking about it, it's probably the best lightsaber fights and duels that we've seen outside of the prequel trilogy. I think that's probably fair to say.
Duel of Fates, man.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about prequels, like, I know a lot of people love to hate on them, but Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan is like one of the best lightsaber battles of all time for sure. And then, Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar was also fantastic. But this one, we had a bunch of stuff that we've seen before where, faster lightsaber battles, which was great. We've seen some stuff that we haven't seen before. Some more like brutal lightsaber combat for sure. Some lightsaber throws that we've only seen in like video games and stuff before. It was cool to see that on screen. Um, the and yes, the choreography I think was very good. I will say the show is not without its flaws, though. When we get into talking about the actual story, when we go into spoilers, I think this show suffers from the 8 episode format for sure. And I can't go into too much of that without spoiling stuff, but just know that it's like the last episode has a lot of work to do. And I don't think it did it all to my satisfaction. Though I will say, overall, as a series, I think it's totally worth watching if you're a Star Wars fan. There's stuff that like I've never seen in a Star Wars property before, which is kind of rare because especially if you look at like the sequel trilogy, it's like um those movies did a lot of like rehashing of the old stuff. And um I think that's why The Mandalorian is such a popular hit, is because it really shows us some stuff that like we have not seen in Star Wars before, and people are kind of hungry for that, I think. um so yeah, I think it's worth watching. Is it perfect? No. It has some flaws and stuff, but overall, it was fun. I was excited every week to watch the next episode. There's some mysteries and stuff in there that I had fun trying to figure out. So I think overall it was better than average. Let's just say, because the average is pretty low on Star Wars shows, I'd say. You know, though this one did a good job. But yeah, you say that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of good. Ah, man, I'll save it for when we come back from the break.
Sure. All right. Well, in that case, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsors, and when we get back, we'll talk full spoilers of Star Wars Acolyte. So we'll be right back. And we're back. I just choked and died a little bit in the break. We are going to be talking full spoilers for Star Wars Acolyte. So if you haven't seen it and you don't like things spoiled for you, I would pause the video or keep it running in the background on mute. That's fine too. We like that. It's called interaction and engagement. But yeah, if you want to like talk about like your theories and of the show and stuff, come back after you've finished the whole series because we're about to spoil the shit out of it. So let's talk a little bit about the story, a brief recap of what the story is about, right? So it opens with Carrie Ann Moss, who is from the Matrix fame, and she's, a Jedi Master who's just, out on some random planet, and there's an assassin who tries to kill her, and they do some cool wire work fights, and turns out this assassin is a Force user, and ends up killing Carrie Ann Moss with a uh, throwing knife.
Dagger.
Yeah, a what's it called? Not a shuriken. Doesn't matter. Kunai. There we go. Kunai. And I will say, first of all, that fight scene was awesome. Cool wire work. Gave me like Drunken Master vibes, Hong Kong wire work vibes for sure. And I think that's a cool way of handling Jedi combat for sure. And then there's we see this other person who looks just like the assassin, but she's very different. Like seems like more relaxed and whatever, and she's a mechanic on a starship. And it turns out that you've come to find out that these are twins who who were separated for many years. And then through the investigation of the death of Carrie Ann Moss, you find out that the good twin, Osha, was training to be a Jedi, but kind of flunked out of Jedi Academy. But now she's being pulled back in by the Jedi, her former masters, to find her bad sister May, who has murdered Carrie Ann Moss.
And we should say they believed it was her because
they believed it was her because they had the description or whatever. And May, the assassin twin, was presumed dead due to an event that happened in the past. And then we do see that event where basically Osha and May were raised by Force witches, not the witches of Dathomir, though there is I forget what Darth Maul's race is called, but who populate Dathomir. She is part of this witch coven, but these are different. They're not Night Sisters. They're not using green Force magic and stuff, but they are using the Force differently than Jedis do. And they created Osha and May through using the Force. They created life somehow, and the Jedi find out about this, and there's a confrontation. May sets the temple on fire, and Osha wants to be a Jedi, so she's trying to leave, but May doesn't want her to leave because she wants to be a witch. And there's a confrontation, and all the witches are killed. Osha escapes with the Jedi, and May is presumed dead, but we find out, of course, that she's alive. And then it's kind of like a mystery of like, why is May trying to track down these Jedi and kill them? And then there's a her master is eventually revealed to be kind of a Sith adjacent bad guy force user. And he wants a acolyte, an apprentice, but she has to go through some trials to prove herself. And it's kind of this back and forth of Osha trying to, find May and vice versa kind of thing, and then May trying to kill the remaining Jedi who were there the night that the witch's temple went down. And by the end of it, in the last episode, May and Osha basically switch. Osha becomes overcome with anger when she finds out that Soul, who is her former master, had actually killed her mother during the confrontation at the witch's temple. And she kills Soul with the force choke. Her lightsaber turns, well, Soul's lightsaber that she was holding turns red. That was very cool seeing that happen, because we've always kind of heard about it in books and whatnot. And then you find out that Osha ends up going away with the Sith Master. I don't remember his name,
I
but
don't remember his name either, but he was pretty cool.
he was really cool. He was well designed, menacing character. His lightsaber was cool. It's red, but it has like a little small dagger style lightsaber that pops off the bottom of it, which is pretty cool.
Like
Uh,
a Japanese tanto,
yeah,
it's like
exactly. But it comes off the handle, and she ends up going off with him to train to be a Sith or whatever, because he mentions he's, you would call me a Sith, but that's not exactly what he is necessarily. And then May gets her memory wiped by the master guy, so that she doesn't know, so she won't know where her sister is and won't be able to help them find her. So that's kind of like the gist of it. Um, what was like, let's start with some, all the positive stuff. We mentioned the choreography. What else did you enjoy about the show?
you know, like I don't think it was a bad idea. So a lot of people were pissed about the no fatherless
Sure.
birth
Sure.
conception because they felt like it belittled Anakin's. I didn't have an issue with that.
Me
Whatever,
neither.
it's fine. I don't care. Um, I do like the idea that one was good, one was bad. I like
Yes.
that. That's fine.
There was some yin yang style imagery with the witches, like they have that circle
Yeah.
that's like burned on their head kind of thing, with a light side and dark side kind of thing. Duality of the force. I enjoyed that too.
Now, I do agree 8 episodes wasn't enough.
Right.
And how it was executed altogether, not a big fan. I think they had good ideas,
Yes.
and I wouldn't say they were badly executed, but they've been executed better. Now, as I was watching it, there was a character that I thought was interesting. Was I don't know, remember if he was a senator, but he was a politician who was just like the Jedi are getting
Oh, the
too.
guy that gets introduced in the last episode.
Yeah, and he's got a great angle. I don't trust you guys are getting too strong. You guys are going too far, which I was like, that's a great like plot point of like, yes, why do the Jedi end up falling, or why do some end up going to the Sith?
Right.
Like you can see a kind of a slow progression. Like it was also kind of cool. Like Soul, I get what Soul did. He was doing what he thought was morally correct, but like lawfully not so great, you know.
Right.
But I was like, what I think would have been cool, what I would have pitched, like, hey, why don't we take the angle of the show from this politician, or maybe like a detective, like he has hints of what has gone on, and through his investigations, and then you can do the whole show, plug in,
Right.
like this is what we think happened. Oh wait, there's evidence to suggest that this is not how it happened, because like, and again, we're doing spoilers, but like the main Jedi head person, I forgot her name, basically comes up with a big ass lie to
Right.
justify what everything had happened. But
Right.
if it had it where he is like learning little by little, like all the lies that
Hmm.
had happened, and again, you can plug in parts of the show that had happened, and like even the old switcheroo of like, oh, May switch, but we see why, like why it happened. She was
Right.
led to believe what Soul was telling her, and it was bullshit, you know, like, oh, your sister May killed all these witches. or killed your mom. Nope, turns out it was Soul, and he did it because he
Yeah.
found out what had happened.
What if instead of being a random starship mechanic, maybe she's an investigator and the Jedi Council, to keep things quiet and off the books, hires her to investigate,
Yeah,
the assassination, and then she finds out her sister's alive. She finds out that the Jedi covered up this, killing of the witches and stuff. Like, and she becomes, who was always one of the Jedi's biggest proponents. She wanted to be a Jedi. Over time, through her findings and stuff, she finds out this huge cover up, and the the hubris of Jedi thinking that they know best and no one else can know as best as they do. You know, that would have been, I think, a more interesting show.
and again, like you can plug in what they had filmed. It's just
Yep.
from a different character's perspective.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And I was just like, that to me seemed way more interesting. Like at least a more interesting way of telling this story. And
Sure.
also kind of gets it away. Like I think that was one of the cool things about Mandalorian is like there was still some, Jedi stuff, but it was seen from the perspective of like this mercenary and just start introducing different angles. Like, you're still getting your Star Wars stuff, but from a different viewpoint. Um,
Yeah.
but that was kind of like, and that idea got me excited. But yeah, I mean, like, and again, because there was great stuff. I just think 8 episodes is not long enough, and
Right.
just different. I think just different ways of telling the stories.
I think the biggest thing that bothered me about it was, like I said, I was excited to watch it every single week, right? I'm like, ooh, what's going to happen this week? And I found myself feeling the same way I do with a lot of these, premium streaming shows that are like 8 to 10 episodes, call it, as particularly eight. I just think eight's not enough. Where, I'm on episode 7 and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered in this last episode. And then this last episode, so let's recap this last episode real quick because we just both watched it today, so it's pretty fresh. So, we find out that you know that May and Osha now are kind of, they haven't totally switched sides, but they're having doubts about their respective sides, right? Then, we have May escapes from Soul's custody, crash lands onto her old home planet, and then Soul follows her down to try to find her. Then Osha and the Dark Sith guy, um, you know, they go to that planet because she has a Force vision that sees him there. We see Darth Plagueis thrown randomly in there.
Allegedly, allegedly.
That made me so mad. It's just like there's there's no hint to it at all through the entire series, and everyone's like, "Ooh, is this young guy? Is he Darth Plagueis in a different body or something? Like, what's happening? Is this going to lead to them?" Because like the timeline kind of lines up, and then we just see randomly in a cave, never mentioned
So
again.
I've never read that book,
Sure,
but I've
me
read
neither. But
enough.
I know just from Star Wars lore.
And I know enough from what I've read because again, I love Star Wars lore, and even if I don't have the time to read the stories, I do like going and reading about characters that like pop up. To the best of my knowledge, I think he was Pelagus the Fair, I think is what it was. Like he was a Sith, but he wasn't necessarily like a full-on dick, like kind of a middle of the road
Yeah,
type Sith. And I think he did manipulate a lot of stuff from the background, which is why Palpatine, kind of learned that. So it's like, okay, that's
right.
like I'm gonna be pulling the strings from the background. So I guess it kind of aligns. And also they created life from nowhere, which he was looking to
That's
try.
like his deal. Yeah, he
Yeah,
wants
it's
to
trying to.
find out how to live forever by creating life from the Force and all that.
So it's, I mean,
My
it's
biggest
fine, but
problem.
like if you're just watching the straight Star Wars movies and not digging a little bit deeper, like
Yeah,
maybe you
everyone would
have.
be like, "What the hell is that guy?" You know what I mean? Like we're more knowledgeable than the average Star Wars enjoyer, let's call it, right? Like the person who just like who sees the movies, maybe watched The Mandalorian because of the hype around it, but that's about it. You know what I mean? Um, and like I can imagine so many people watching that and just being like, "What was that guy? What was that's just some dude in a cave?"
That was the dude who was beaten off when the Sith was coming out of the water. He's like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah,
come out of that
exactly.
water again.
Yeah, go back in there. Leave the shirt off. Yeah, so that frustrated me. Now if we had a couple scenes of and maybe I it's totally possible that I missed it. So, but like if we had a couple scenes of the the main Sith Master guy, I should know his name, but anyway, the helmet guy. If we had scenes of him like talking to someone in the shadows or referencing his master or something, like we would have been like, oh, there's someone else out there, and then seeing a person in the shadows, even if you don't know who Darth Plagueis is, you'd be like, ooh, that must be the guy that his master who's pulling the strings. We had no hints throughout this entire show that there was anyone else above this guy,
No,
and that just
I
kind of
think like the only slight hint we got was the head Jedi Council lady when she's like calling someone for like a favor, and you could tell like from the voice, oh, it's Senator Palpatine. Like you could tell like that's who she's asking like for a favor or something. So it's like that's kind of like the only time we have to Plagueis or
you think Senator Palpatine was in this?
he was like speaking. I'm pretty sure it was him because she asked for like some kind of favor from someone, and it's all
Hmm,
voice, and you could hear.
maybe.
And I was like, oh, that sounds like Palpatine. And I was like, that's
Maybe. I mean,
probably
I think this is supposed to be 200 years before the original Star Wars. So,
see. And I'm getting confused with the timeline, right? Because
yeah.
that's kind of what I had thought too. That from what I had seen, it was like supposed to be like 200 years. I'm like, okay. Now, granted, Yoda is old as fuck, but 200 years when you're 800, 600, like he should
Yeah.
look a little bit fucking better than what they showed him, you know?
Yeah. And
Um,
that's another thing. We do get a little Yoda cameo kind of thing. You just see the ears.
and
So
not
he's there.
yeah, and not only that, I was like, okay, he should have like maybe some dark hair. I guess maybe they don't have, but maybe some less gray or no gray.
Yeah. I mean, he had like the sideburns in the prequel or the sequel trilogy, prequel trilogy.
And also, I mean, again, they age differently, but the guy with the big forehead, I forget his name, the guy from the Jedi,
Yeah.
like he looked the same age, but granted, he could age like they
Well,
could.
he also dies in this show, I think, right? Doesn't he?
Ooh,
I
I
think
don't know if he
I
was
think he
in the
dies
Jedi
at
fight because
I
he's in the prequels, unless it's an
I think
ancestor.
it's a different guy, but people have been kind of like saying that, and then there was Plo Koon, who's that other guy who's got the like
Yeah,
got the thing on his mouth.
that's
He dies, but that could just be another of his race. But who knows? But yeah, so like I get it, like you want to put fan service in there, but like it seemed that seemed like it was like inserted into the show just willy nilly to like please the people who were talking about on Reddit about Darth Plagueis being involved. It just seemed so out of nowhere. And then and so yes, so they go off, they all meet on the planet. Soul and the Sith Master guy have a lightsaber battle, which was very good, very entertaining. And then you see the I forget the Jedi Master who's like the boss lady, the green lady. She's bringing a bunch of Jedi's to knights to the planet to intercept them, and so like you have this race between time and stuff. Soul admits that he killed the mother, of the twins, and that turns May over to the dark side, or turns Osha over to the dark side. She force chokes and kills him, and then she goes off and escapes with the master to be trained. And all of that happened, and then May's memories wiped. Then we have uh I think her name is Andara. Master Andara is like questioning her, finding out about the memory wipe, and then making this lie about how Soul was like this rogue Jedi who did all this on his own to kind of like save the image of the Jedi and make it seem like they can handle their own problems and stuff so they can get less Senate oversight and whatnot. And all that happens in one episode. It just seems like such a rushed job on that. And I just like even two more episodes would have, I think, done this show a lot of justice, would have really let you sit with some of these realizations that have been happening, have the little Pelagus cameo thing, but then maybe drop a couple little hints here and there that um the Sith Master is like, you know, working for someone else kind of thing. Um just it really needed some time to breathe, I think.
Yeah,
But
and I like OSHA's transition kind of made sense. It didn't need a whole lot of time to
right.
see that change because oh, he did kill my mother. He's been lying to me for years. Makes sense. But Maze was just kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Why would she not have gone and also trained with this guy?
Right.
Like I'll stay behind and wipe my memory. Why?
Yeah.
Like I like why?
Yeah, why does she not want to be, trained by him anymore? Like it seemed like, she first had the idea of like, hey, I'm going to turn myself into the Jedi because my sister's alive, and if I turn myself in, I can be in her life and she can be in mine, even if I'm, in jail or whatever. So I can give up this quest of vengeance to be with my sister. Like, okay, that's an interesting angle. And then, but at the end, when she has that chance to be with her sister, to be with the Sith Master guy who she was already kind of into his way of thinking and whatnot, like, why didn't she take that chance?
Like
Why did she have?
what I thought the show was going to lead into was they were both sides of the Force.
Yeah,
One was a Sith, one was a Jedi. So when one starts leaning one way, just by counterbalance, the other one leans the other way. So
right.
when as Osha slowly, oh my God, he did kill my mom, and now like I want to get revenge. Then May has to by force, just by
Yeah. Well,
like by force, but like but like
if
because
Soul had like explained himself and she's like, oh, I didn't know it happened that way, or he reveals something that she didn't know about the witches and stuff, because like, he's just like, yeah, and that's the thing is like, yes, he kills their mother, but he does it because she was like fucking turning into black smoke and teleporting. He didn't know what the fuck was going on, right? He thought he was being attacked or something. And like, if something in his story or his knowledge talking to May convinces her, oh, well, I don't like that he killed my mother, but I can see why he did this and what was at stake or whatever. Then you could have that transition where she's like starting to see the Jedi's side of things. But no, she escapes from him as first chance she gets. She stuns him and stuff, and then she's running away from him the entire time. So like we never got her reason for turning a, towards the light side, if you would even call it that. So
I did like the pull of the heartstring, like when Soul was like explaining himself, and he's like, I did it because I love, and then she starts fucking like he's about to say, I did it
I
because I
love,
love you,
yeah,
and then like, which also a like he does kind of see her like a daughter, and you do see the kind of the father figure, but it also just kind of leads you as like, oh, they're not supposed to feel, they're
right,
not supposed to get attached. Oh, that's a good lean in into why he did something that was non-Jedi like because he was caring
right.
and he
He
wasn't
was being
supposed to.
tempted by his emotions and stuff.
Yeah, but like we didn't get that,
We didn't get that. And we didn't get, why he wanted a Padawan so badly. Like we see that in that one episode. He's like, no, I just feel like, she belongs with me and this and that. But we don't get a justification for that. You know what I mean? Like why? Why does this, why does he feel so strongly about this one child to be his Padawan? Why hasn't he had a Padawan before? And, there's a lot that like we never got in his character development to understand why he felt so strongly that he had to save these kids when like we never see them in danger or anything. Yes, we know the witches are kind of creepy and not what a typical force user that we know of is acting like, but we never saw anything particularly violent or anything from them until the Jedi showed up and tried to take their kids away.
She's
So
like, I don't like that these witches don't need men. They're
yeah,
making babies over here without us. What the fuck is that all about? Fuck
yeah.
that.
I don't like that lady. She's got horns. What's that about? um, yeah, I was just hoping for a little bit more character development and more plot development. A lot of stuff in this seemed like it happened because the show had to happen and not because it was like earned and justified. And I think, you know, with some of these like 8 episode shows, that's kind of the risky run is that you've got this story to tell and you've got a limited time to tell it in. And, you want some of those episodes where you're sitting in a cave and talking about your feelings and remembering your past and stuff. Like you want those kind of slow episodes, but then you don't have, like, if you had more episodes in total, you can have that slow episode and not rush the next two, to get to the plot points you feel like you need to. So it's not a perfect show. I was like, this last episode really let me down, I think, though cool stuff happened. I just felt like when I'm taken out of a show, like taken out of the story, out of what's happening, because I feel the limitations of studio interference or budget or what have you, that really bums me out. Um,
I do
it
want to say I really love the and before we run out of time, but the Wookiee Jedi fight was fucking great.
Oh, it was great.
The
Yeah, we had never
overhand
seen.
swings, he's just like using his immense like physical strength was fucking
It was
dope.
cool. Yeah, and I will say, like, I know we kind of shit on this show for the past like 15 minutes or whatever, but like there's a lot of stuff to really like about this show. The fight choreography was great. The Sith Master versus all the Jedi, where he stabs one Jedi and then Force pulls another one onto the lightsaber. Awesome. He when he X-23, uh the Daphne Keene, I think is the actress's name.
Yeah, yeah,
Her,
yeah.
when she's a Padawan, she's fighting him dual lightsabers, and then he whips out the little one and just stabs her 3 times, and you're like, oh fuck,
It was
you
like
know,
poke, poke, poke.
yeah, 3 hole punch. I just thought that was so cool and like stuff we hadn't seen before. It's almost expected from like a Disney Star Wars where it's like, oh, the young Padawan, is able to hold her own and is more empowered because of it. And, she has a moment where she proves herself. It's like, no, she just is fucking owned by this Sith Lord.
Yeah, like some of the people were complaining, like, "Oh, this one Sith took out a bunch of Jedi." I was like, "Yeah, I mean that doesn't shock me at all." Like, dude, it's been hundreds of years that they thought the Sith were all like destroyed. Like they like sure they train, but they're like, "Oh, well, I don't have this equal who's gonna like fight me." So it's like, yeah, I could get it. They got comfortable,
Right.
and it's like,
And they only trained against other Jedi. So
yeah.
when he fights in a style that's not how Jedi fight, that pokes a hole in their, strategy and whatnot. So I
And the
think,
Padawan, ha, ha.
yeah, yeah, and the Padawan. There's some good stuff in there. Also, the Sith Lord guy apparently is Master Andara's like um old Padawan or apprentice or whatever too. There's that little scene there. Again, like all this stuff thrown into the last episode. It was just so much so fast. And like we did see he has like some scars on his back that could be like from her whip lightsaber, which we only saw one time. Though apparently that's a thing from the books or comics or something. And a big thing with her, that they reference from the comics, I think, is that when she travels through hyperspace, she sees visions in the Force. And like they reference that about how like she doesn't like going through hyperspace, but we don't see her have any of those visions or anything. So I don't know. Just I think there's some missed opportunities. I think a season 2, I would be really down to watch for sure. But I think the problem is like if you flounder on season 1, the likelihood of getting that season 2 is less and less. Like I think that's what the Mandalorian did so well is it's the first season is a self-contained little story. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end, and everything we see along the way is justified. It's justified by the characters' actions, by their motivations, and nothing happens conveniently for the plot. I think that's the main thing that this show kind of suffered from a little bit. But overall, I think it was good and worth a watch. I just the amount of money that was put into it and the hype that was around it and how it started off, like it started off great, and it just I felt like I really felt that time crunch towards the end, and that's kind of a bummer. But overall, I think very, pretty good. Definitely, if we were to do a quick ranking of the Disney Plus Star Wars shows, I would put this under The Mandalorian, under Andor, but above Book of Boba Fett, maybe above Ahsoka, I think. And then Kenobi, I don't know. There's a lot of nostalgia in Kenobi, but there's only like, there's two episodes that really did it for me in Kenobi. And I think, I don't know, this might be about the same as Kenobi, maybe for me. Um, but yeah, I think it's worth a watch for sure if you're a Star Wars fan. There's a lot of cool stuff in it. It just, that last episode, just like, man, it was, if it was 2 hours long, okay, it might have been able to make it seem more planned out and stuff, but it felt like they were just slapping shit together in that last episode. But let us know what you guys think down in the comments. Like, are we way off base? Did you enjoy it? Or did you think that you could feel that time crunch? Was this the Star Wars show that you hoped it would be? I think it's not a perfect show, but overall, I liked some of the choices they made. And I think I'm excited to see them do more of that stuff. I just really like, man, Disney has so much money. Like, make a 15 episode show. Like, what's it gonna hurt? If it fails, it fails. You know what I mean? Sure, but it's like it'll keep people watching Disney Plus for longer, and you have a chance to really tell a story the way it's meant to be told. But
I was gonna say it's like maybe they're losing money because all these people who now apparently hate Star Wars, but it's like no, they're still getting their money because they're still watching the show, like because
yeah,
they're very much pointing out what they don't like about Star Wars. Like, stop watching it. Like
yeah,
clearly you watched it. Like you paid money.
yeah,
Stop
exactly.
watching it.
Yeah, and I think as a Star Wars thing, I think it was pretty good. I just think that there's symptoms of a greater problem that are affecting it, that are preventing it from being great. The Mandalorians of the world are, and the Andors especially, because Andor was like, there's no reason that should have worked because it's slow. There's no Jedi in it. It's like a very slow plotting, like espionage style show. But like it made sense. Like every single episode was purposeful and planned out, and that's why I think it was successful. And I just want them to approach every show like a new Star Wars thing should be special. It shouldn't follow the same rules as the next Netflix original show or the next Hulu original show. It shouldn't follow those same rules. It shouldn't even follow like the Game of Thrones rules. It should be special and extra care taken to it, and like it should really be something that a lot of work and care is put into to make it sure that it lives up to the reputation of Star Wars, which has, let's be honest, has been tarnished over the past couple of years. So
Well, I think it's because they've been taking. That's why I think my idea would work. A, not because I think it's my idea, but mostly, but because it's a different take on it. Like Mandalorian worked because it was a Western,
yeah,
and Andor worked because it was espionage. It
right.
was just a different angle, and
Yeah.
like
So what was this? Like what was different? Well, it wasn't really different. It was Jedi. The murder mystery thing, I think, was they had a kernel of genius there. But I think you're right. I think if we saw that from a different perspective, or if there was a Jedi who wasn't related to the things that had happened on that investigating it, right? Soul knew what happened there that night, right? And the other Jedi who were being killed off one by one, they all knew because they were all there. So like we should have had an outsider discovering these things as
even the nerdy Jedi, the fucking nerdy Jedi who was excited about the little rat thing, like, oh my god, you're safe. like
Yeah.
him stumbling upon things, just
Right.
like, oh, this doesn't make sense, and pointing it out to other people, like, hey, I noticed that, like, I know we're this is what is on the official records, but like, I've noticed just through digging, like, to like, doing my own research,
Right.
this
One of the
showing
Padawans,
up.
like what if one of the Padawans was like questioning it this whole time, seeing what their master was, hiding things and whatnot. Like
And
it
they
could have
couldn't
been,
let it go. They couldn't let it go. Like a dog with a bone. They just like, nah, I want to figure this out. Like this one
yeah,
little issue. This one, like even like, oh, in the official records, like it's just showing this, and it doesn't make sense with the rest of what had happened.
yeah.
Digs a little bit deeper. Digs a little bit deeper. Finds out more things.
Talks to OSHA, talks to May, and then is putting pieces together themselves. Like that would have been so much better, I think. But and then it would have been a murder mystery. You know what I mean? It like there was hints of murder mystery in this, but it's like we quickly found out who was doing it, probably why they were doing it, and then it just it fell short a little bit. But I think you guys should check it out. Let us know what you think and what you think of our idea of the murder mystery rewrite of it. I think that could have been fantastic. And you could have still had lightsaber battles and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Everything you could have. It just all flashbacks or just like piecing it together. Like
Yeah. Well, the easy thing is like all of the stuff that would make it into a good like murder mystery show would just be like dialogue. It would be two people talking, maybe a guy typing into a computer or whatever, or just looking at security footage,
or the
it,
Jedi. What is it? The little triangle
the little
thing.
holocrons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just putting it
Yeah.
in there. Just
Yeah, exactly. It would have been so easy. But yeah, again, we should work for Disney, Marvel, what have you.
just
We're
consultants, man.
we're available. We're available. You hand us the script and be like, wait, guys. You're gonna do all this in the last episode. Why don't we set this up throughout the entire series, perhaps? I'd be interested to watch a series over again, knowing how it ends. And like and don't get me wrong, like we're not perfect. Maybe we missed some stuff that was hinted at, but it just seems like a lot of stuff was just thrown in there, like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? So overall though, I know we're kind of hard on it, but I think it's still worth watching. It's still fun. And we do want to know what you guys think. So let us know down in the comments while you're down there. Like and subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends to come check us out. And we're getting back into the rhythm a little bit. This once every 2 weeks rhythm is kind of working out okay. Eventually we'll get back to where we're on and we're making sure we're doing everything. We are at Comic-Con next week.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So the likelihood of us keeping on schedule is probably pretty low. But we'll come back with a full Comic Con recap. Hopefully, we'll have gone to the Deadpool panel if that's a possibility in the cards for us. But yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Christian, thanks for being the OSHA to my May, the May to
I'm
my
down.
OSHA. To all the nerds out there, remember you're not alone. You're with friends. This is Nerds with Friends, and may the force be with you.